Space, the final frontier. Join us for a bold conversation. Our prime directive: to recap our favorite Star Trek shows, both new and old. To engage in debate about all things Trek. Prepare to energize with phasers set to stun.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to a new episode of Phasers Set to Stun, where we continue to show our love for everything Star Trek in this ongoing series from A Film by Podcast, which focuses on every system of the expanding Star Trek universe by covering television, movies, animation, directors, merchandise, and so much more. Plotting your course on this voyage is your core Trek crew. I'm Wayne Whited.
I'm David Burns.
And I'm Scott Hoffman.
And today we're warping back to the late 1990s, December 11th, 1998 to be exact, and taking a close and detailed look at the ninth entry into the Star Trek film franchise, Star Trek Insurrection. This is the third film to star the Next Generation cast, and was written by Rick Berman and Michael Piller, and directed once again by Jonathan Frakes. Scott, why don't you give us a short summary of the film to remind us?
Sure. So the Federation is about to cross a line that the Enterprise crew is unwilling to cross, and the result is an insurrection. We find ourselves on the paradise planet of the Baku, which is an undiscovered Garden of Eden that grants its inhabitants eternal youth thanks to an orbiting ring of metaphasic particles. While their advanced society has warp capabilities, they simply have no interest or need in anything beyond enjoying every moment on their planet, and rightly so. However, another group aligned with the Federation that calls themselves the Sona have much more selfish plans in mind. They plan to forcibly relocate the Baku so that they can steal the rejuvenating metaphasic particles with a process that would ravage the planet and ruin their paradise. When Picard learns of this plot, he defies his orders and takes a stand to save the Baku. It's a movie that finds the Federation thinking twice about their decisions and gives the crew some unexpected gifts along the way. Although it's not everyone's favorite Star Trek movie, it's an important entry in the Next Generation saga.
Well, you know, after First Contact was a critical and financial success, Paramount wanted to change things around, and they asked for this new film to be lighter in tone, similar to what they had gotten with Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. Mm-hmm. This time they asked Michael Piller, the creator and the showrunner of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, to write the script. Let's start with David. What did you think? What was your initial opinions on Star Trek Insurrection?
So after coming off of First Contact and we get this, to be honest with you, I was let down by this film.
Oh.
I now 20 years later, I love it. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I still think it's the third best of the Next Generation films. But to be honest with you, it really felt like at times it felt like a TV episode, especially the way it opens and begins. We have these great openings that we have with Generations. We have this great opening with First Contact, with the music and the title credits and stuff like that. And then we get this feels like TV miniseries opening with Insurrection. Again, don't get me wrong, I like this movie. I just felt it did not live up to where we had with First Contact.
I feel like we're going to have a little bit of disagreement here.
Well, it might be a disagreement. However, I'm on with Dave. I feel like this is one that had to kind of grow on me. I'm pretty sure I saw this in the theaters because I would have been really excited for it.
Yeah.
But I do remember feeling kind of let down by it for those same kind of reasons. I feel like Randall from Clerks 2 would probably have hated this movie because it's got so much walking. It feels like Star Trek in the Shire meets The Hobbit. There's a lot of like easier paced kind of things, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like in this era of Star Trek, maybe there was an expectation that there was going to be more action. I feel like, with First Contact, but also I feel like around this time, Deep Space Nine was getting into a little bit more of the Dominion war kind of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's kind of that tone set of an action movie to expect when you're looking at cinematic Star Trek. It doesn't have to be that way, and I think there's good decisions they made with this. But yeah, at first it just kind of fell flat. Like, okay, I saw an episode. Wayne, what about you?
Yeah, well, I do agree with both of you on a few of those points. It did feel like an extended TV series episode, and I know a lot of people said that. I personally don't find that a problem, though, just because after First Contact, and of course, First Contact is always going to be my favorite of the Next Generation films. I actually put this one as second, but because it Star Trek First Contact was an incredible film. It was also a very heavy film, with the Borg, very confined, very dramatic, intense. That I like just the light-heartedness and the open, look of this film, and I think the cast are just phenomenal in it. There's some great dialogue. I do agree, though. And I think this is one of the reasons why I like it. It's the wrong reason, but I think this film is a great example of style over substance. Yeah, it looks fantastic. It sounds fantastic, but the script isn't quite up to what it could be. But I still really like it.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's elements of this movie that I really, really enjoy, and they felt very cinematic at times.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't want to tear the film completely apart because I did like it. And there's a lot of stuff in it I found humorous. You got the chemistry again with the cast that is perfect and spot on everywhere. And, we get the Riker maneuver, which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite scenes of the entire movie. But the one thing it desperately missed out on is Industrial Light and Magic.
Yeah.
I know that they were super busy. They were working on the Phantom Menace and something else, I believe. Yep. So they couldn't do this film. Granted, there are some scenes that look really good CGI-wise, but there are other scenes you're kind of cringy at times. And you're like, this is almost stuff we would have seen in an episode. Again, I'm not putting down episodes, because of budget reasons and stuff like that. They did a really fantastic job. But for a cinematic piece, they could have done a lot better of a job here. And I felt that really pulled me out of the film at times.
Well, speaking of the visual effects, you're right about ILM not being able to do it, but the company that did work on it was a company called Blue Sky, and also Santa Barbara Studios, and they're no small companies. They worked on some really big films. Blue Sky worked on Blade, and also did Armageddon very recently before this, and they helped out. They did the first season of Star Trek Enterprise, which I can see that because the visual effects are very similar. Now looking at it, and Santa Barbara Studios worked on Generations. They're the ones that did the bottle through space that crashed on the Enterprise D at the beginning, the title sequence.
Yeah.
Plus, they did the title sequences for or the CGI elements of the title sequences for Deep Space Nine and Voyager. I think a lot of it too is this was the first film that was almost entirely done in CGI, and at the point in time that was rather odd for us, and it looks still very early. I mean, really was still very early in CGI. I mean, look what they can do today. But they did a decent job.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough when it's kind of writ large up on the big screen, right?
Yeah.
I think even when I'm watching it, it's not like any of the downsides to the CGI are really so apparent because I'm either watching it on my phone or I'm watching it on the television. Some of the elements that felt odd to me CGI wise were the death of Dougherty and the Lost in Space pet that the kid was carrying around. The little blobby, whatever that was.
Whatever that thing was, yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that because I think Lost in Space was the same year, and the visual effects weren't that great in that film either.
Oh my god! When you look at those two, it's like this is a visual effects masterpiece.
Yeah.
But I will give them credit; they made a lot of advances in how they were handling the effects, and I think things like the depth of Dougherty, it seems a little odd because it just seems like somebody's applying a stretching effect, like when his eyeball is kind of stretching out. It's like, but it gets the idea across. It does what it's supposed to do. Having the tiny little hamster pet, it serves the function of a little hamster pet. I think it's probably just having the little hamster pet is what's kind of bothering me, right? That it's one of those like, Cuddles, no, I have to go back and save my pet hamster. It's like, that's admirable, and in the mind of a kid, that probably makes perfect sense, but come on, man. It'd
Yeah,
probably be
no.
okay. So, yeah, I think it probably could have benefited from um, a little bit more ILM flair, but I think in general, a lot of it is just the um, the villains that we have don't seem very menacing.
hmm
Yeah.
They have a very nefarious plot that has somehow, dazzled the Federation to just go along with their plans without understanding the science.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point.
yeah, a lot of that too was because, and I don't think this quite came as clear as it should have been in the film. The Federation or Starfleet was in the middle, I mean, really smack in the middle of the Dominion War, and were short on supplies, short on ships, short on people. I mean, they took a lot of death and destruction, if you remember, on Deep Space Nine. So they were.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's right because it's not. Obviously that's part of the storyline, but they were willing to overlook some of the bad stuff about the Sona. And I just don't think that came off very clear, other than I think what was it, one or two lines that was mentioned about
Yeah,
it.
it was mentioned. That was about it. Just
Yeah.
blown over.
Which is an interesting point, Wayne, because it is in Deep Space Nine when they are in the Dominion War, and obviously we see the repercussions of one of their more questionable decisions in Picard season 3. So
Yes.
it is right around that time when it's like the Federation isn't necessarily always perfect, and sometimes they're not even very Federation-like, like overlooking the Prime Directive and just saying we don't know how it works, we just trust that it does. No, you don't. Not if you're a science-based organization. But that desperation is maybe an element of it, and a time when we're seeing the heroes like Picard saying that's not the Federation they believe in.
And speaking of all of this too, we saw everything that was happening on Deep Space Nine and how devastating it was to Starfleet and the Federation. And it makes you wonder, what was the Enterprise doing during this war? And we got this. And it doesn't look like they're doing anything. I mean, is Starfleet keeping them out, off to the side? And why are they doing this mission? Why aren't they there at the front lines? And it's none of that's answered ever.
Yeah, they did a really poor job of that. I'll definitely agree with that.
Well, maybe there is a lot of technological importance assigned to the Eugene Chefaw species that they were wooing with chrysanthemums and balsamic vinaigrette.
That's right.
It does seem kind of odd, and that they'd be able to pull Worf out of his station where he is now, talking about the importance of that. It seems like he would be critically important to be there.
Yeah, he would.
time.
Yeah. Speaking of that scene too, which I kind of like the opening scene. I like the dialogue that was written, but we got the debut of those new sharp Starfleet dress uniforms, the white and gray ones with the collars. Yeah.
Yep.
What do you guys think about those? I personally loved them.
I did too. I thought that was a nice new touch.
Yeah.
And they really stood out and looked good in them. Absolutely.
A lot better than the dress uniform, the dress uniform dresses that they had in the Next Generation.
But they came a long way, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I think Picard did a good job of handling the bejeweled cummerbund that he had to wear on his head with a lot of grace. Okay, I'll put this on my head. Sure.
Yeah. I like when he was motioning for the crewmen to come out, and all he just did is tell the chef to skip the fish course.
Yeah. I do feel like it's a little interesting. We're into our third movie with Data in it, right? It is starting to feel like a lot of these scripts start with, we open on Data malfunctioning.
Well, that was the whole lot of episodes too, wasn't it?
That's
I
true.
think they would have learned their lesson by this point.
I mean,
when they found out something had happened with Data, I would expect them to roll their eyes of, my God, here we go again.
Yeah.
well, isn't there even a line when they're like, is it his emotion chip? And he's
Yeah.
like, no, he left it behind this time. And I was like, okay, well, probably a good idea, but also he can do that? Like other missions where he's just like, I don't really need to feel anything on this one. I'm just going to put it in the cupboard. Good for him, but
And this is also the second time we've seen these duck blinds that Starfleet have to observe planets. And I don't know. I just don't like that concept. It seems so
No.
creepy.
It does.
The idea of the Starfleet and the Federation is like spying or eyeballing all these planets and stuff. I didn't like it the first time. I'm trying to remember the name of the episode. It was Who Watches the Watchers or something like that.
Yeah,
But,
something like that. Yep,
it didn't go very well there, and it doesn't go very well here. They need to stop that.
I agree.
Speaking of which, and it's interesting, I didn't think of this until you just mentioned it, but is it the Treaty of Algernon that makes it so that they can't use cloaking technology?
Yes, I believe that is. Yeah.
So there's twice in this episode that they technically violate that, or does it only apply to ships?
Only ships, apparently.
Well, yeah. Of course, if you remember from Deep Space Nine too, that's they were allied with the Romulans during the war, and they were kind of a little lax with that law or that rule, because remember the Defiant had the cloaking device too. So I don't.
Yeah, it seems like maybe after this mission they just underlined certain parts of that treaty to say this is why, because it's super creepy.
Yeah.
And people can use it to just abduct people in the blink of an eye and not even tell them that they're gone. That seems ultra creepy.
Yeah.
I did have one major problem with this film that I just can't let it go. I do not like a beardless Riker.
You're like Troy.
Yeah.
You say yuck.
Nah. No,
How
it was,
dare you?
Yeah, it was different one during the first season of TNG, but seeing him now, 10 years later? No.
Yeah, no.
Throw it back.
I did love the chemistry between Deanna, though, and him.
Yes.
I love the playfulness, the romance and stuff that was going on. When they were sitting there doing the research, and she's like rubbing the back of his neck, and I loved all of that. And you're finally seeing that connection between the two of them really start to grow. And obviously, we know where it's going to end up between the two of them, but I like that a lot. I thought that was probably some of the best part of this film.
Oh, I agree. It's something we all wanted. We never really got much in the series. I was glad that they were heading in that direction.
Yeah.
Well, and the timing of it is really well done, because we have that happening before they get to the planet. So it's not just a byproduct of the metaphysic particles or
Right.
whatever, right? And he even acknowledges that in a line to say, like, do you think we're still going to feel the same way even after we leave? And I think it's a great touch to have Worf kind of give him that reassuring line where he's like, come on, you guys have been close before this. It's not the particles. Go for it. Considering that he had the relationship with Troy, and if this is happening at the time relative to Deep Space Nine, when he had just lost Jadzia,
Yep.
he'd be going through a tough time. So good job on Worf doing that. Dave, I understand what you mean, and it's just weird to see him without a beard. It really is strange.
I remember first seeing the theaters when that happens. Oh no, we're going backwards. No.
He's got to have that line about smooth as an android's butt, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then Data goes there and rubs it.
I love that they changed the script. I guess there was a line that Data was supposed to say, and I think if it was Brent Spiner that had any kind of influence on that scene, to just make it a nonverbal, just to shake his head and be like, not quite.
Yeah. There were a lot of deleted scenes for this film. Many of them can be found on the film's Blu-ray and DVD release. But I want to mention, and I brought this up a couple weeks ago to you too, but I'll tell the listeners. There was one scene that we actually filmed that, I wish that they would have kept in the film. And it takes place at the end of the film after the Sona have been defeated, and Picard and the Enterprise crew are saying their goodbyes on the planet. And Quark from Deep Space Nine appears on the planet. He's fully decked out in a Ferengi swimsuit, looking to sell vacation timeshares on the planet. He gets into an argument with Picard, and Picard orders Worf to drag him back to Deep Space Nine with him. This was fully shot and cut late into the stages of the editing, but you can still find pictures. The footage, I have not been able to find it all. I don't think it's available, but it's a really funny scene. I wish they would have kept that in the film, because it would have made a very nice little cap at the end of the film.
I would have loved to have seen that.
Well, I think it's a smart idea to talk about. So what happens to this planet afterward? Because it is a fountain of youth, right? And it's not necessary to disrupt the Baku's life by having a bunch of vacationers that are looking for Risa 2.0 or whatever. But, commercially, I'm sure the Ferengi probably could have helped to regulate how to, once people know about that planet, how to use it in various ways. Like you mentioned, the Dominion War that was going on at this time and having so many injuries and so many casualties and things like that. Seeing what happened with Geordi, it seems like medically there'd be a lot of positive applications, not needing to move the particles at all, but just have like a hospital set up on that planet.
Yeah, it would be a good idea, but I think the big worry is there would be a lot of races, a lot of planets that were looking to exploit.
Oh, absolutely.
Exploit the image. You're just thinking about like the Romulans, maybe the Klingons, definitely the Ferengi. I think they're just wanting to try to stop that, but we never hear about what happens to a lot of these planets afterwards.
No.
Yeah.
They're going to have to probably protect this planet now. The Federation's going to have to protect it and keep watch over it.
Yeah, that is true.
Although after the events of this, they probably were like, thank you so much, Picard and crew, for helping us out. Oh, no problem. So can we set up like some kind of Federation hospital here? No, we don't like the Federation. Get out.
Yeah. Get out.
Thanks so much, but get out.
Right. What do you guys think about finally using the Captain Jot?
Finally, yes, that's the word. Finally, it's been there. It's always been there. On all the ships. Well, at least the Enterprise D. But because I remember you could buy the model all the way back back to 87. You could buy the model and it would come off of it, but we never ever saw it on the TV show.
Nope, never.
No. It was
about time.
It was a cool little ship.
Yeah,
it was, and it came in handy for the what it needed.
Yep.
All right, we'll take a short break and then we'll come back and talk more about Star Trek Insurrection. All right, we're back, and I want to bring up. Let's talk about the ending of the film. How do you guys think this film ended? Are you happy with the ending? Do you think it didn't work? What's your opinion?
It ended with a happy one. They're getting to say goodbye. One thing I have to admit, it would be tough for me to leave, honestly. That the fact that you can pretty much get to live for I don't know how long, forever, who knows, and making that decision, and once again, Picard's like James Bond. He finds romance no matter where he goes.
Yeah.
And leaving that behind. I like the child instance too of Data. Him and the kid playing in the hay there at the end, and then basically sick. Well, I got to go home now. So I did like that, and the crew, basically the 7 of them, and then just being a part of the Enterprise and leaving, and just that's where we end. I thought it was appropriate for this film.
Scott,
yeah,
what about you?
I think there was, in terms of Data playing with a kid, I think there's that semi cringy, almost Phantom Menace line where the kid goes, "Hey Data, just remember, try to be a little kid every day." It's like, did you have to say that? But no, I think it ended the right way. It did seem like the Captain Picard swinging to the rescue in a tank top, having the battle scene, seemed a little odd where it happened. It was almost like they forgot to put in an action sequence and did that.
Well, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah,
that really is exactly what happened, because they had shot a different ending to the one that we ultimately got. But the studio and the test screenings, they felt it was a little too soft, a little too confusing. In it, Picard, he manages to disable the collector, but Ruffo escapes in a small pod, and he ejects into the rings. But then he's bombarded with the particles and starts reversing in age to the point where he just disappears. And that's it. And people were confused. Did he die? Did he not die? What happened to him? They felt that there just wasn't enough action, so that's why all that's put in there. And you're right. You hit exactly how I feel when it comes to the ending. Is it feels like that there's the action is tacked in there. I don't know whether I prefer the original ending or this new one. It doesn't feel right to me.
But did you guys feel, though, that whole fight at the end felt like we were treading ground again from Generations?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
It-
and First Contact. Yeah,
Yeah, it really felt like that all over again, in my opinion. You know, him working on the console, you know, just as he did in Generations, you know, getting it to stop the timer, you know, those kind of things. It felt like we had already done that. So I remember when I first saw this thing in the theater and it was happening, I'm like, we're having the same ending as Generations, you know,
Yep.
the same kind of fight going on here. I felt cheated with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're right, and I mean that's straight down to the writing, the script. I don't even think they realized what they were doing; that they were copying pretty much what had happened before. It's a pity that they did that.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm glad we didn't get the other ending, not necessarily because it feels soft, just because I found the Sona to be kind of disturbing with all the skin stretching and all this
Oh,
other kind
yeah.
of stuff.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
imagine seeing that de-aged. Um, I mean, I guess the staples would still be there, but that'd be kind of disturbing. Like, no.
Well, now let's talk. Do either one of you remember where you saw this film first?
No,
No.
no, I remember seeing it in the theater, but I don't remember which theater it was. No, I don't.
Yeah,
I
for me,
do.
it was probably an Eastgate or a 275 cinema kind of thing. Yeah, there's not a lot of memories about it stand out. What about you, Wayne?
I do have a memory because I went and saw this film like I did with probably the last four before this. I saw this with my mom, and we saw it in the theater that used to be in the Dayton Mall. It's not there anymore, but I remember it very clearly because as we were walking out, I think this is the first time she has ever said that she liked anything Star Trek.
Oh, cool. All right.
She was never a fan. I don't think I saw it with you, David, which is odd because we were seeing a
No.
lot of films at that time.
Yeah,
But I don't think we went and saw that. I know we saw Nemesis together. But
we
not
did,
that one.
but we didn't see Insurrection together. No.
That's always a cool moment when you have I guess a convert that's
Mhm.
gonna
Oh,
say
yeah.
like,
Well, I don't know if I call her a convert because wait until we talk about Nemesis and then I tell you what you say about that.
temporary. But when you get somebody to recognize, like, there is something probably for everyone in Star Trek. And when
Yeah.
you get to have a moment where you're sharing it with somebody that you care about and they see what you have been seeing, that's a cool moment. I'm glad you had that.
Yeah, me too, Wayne.
Yeah, and all the films, all the films. First Contact was the same way. The producers have in their mind they need to make a film that kind of hits with all different types of audiences, not just Star Trek fans, not people who are familiar with the show.
Yep.
I think this film actually succeeded in that. I think they succeeded in that. I'm not saying they succeeded as a good film, but it hit. It hit. A lot of people came out and liked the film. It's really, if you read about it, the opinion on this film is 50-50.
I can
Yeah.
see that. I do.
Yeah.
Yep. And like I said,
Well-
I don't hate this film.
No.
I just have problems with it. That's all. I still enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
in addition to having a script that is probably going to be able to reach a broader audience, I feel like we also really had a pretty strong cast in this
Oh, yeah.
one.
Oh yeah, let's
Um,
talk about the cast. Yeah.
So I'm
yeah.
glad that we got a lot of the regulars back, but you have some big names stepping into these roles.
Yeah.
F. Murray Abraham as Roafu.
Mm-hmm.
I was happy to hear that this is one of his favorite roles, apparently.
That's surprising considering the career he's had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think Amadeus would be, but anyway.
Yeah, he got an Academy Award for that.
Exactly. But he did play a really good villain in this. You know,
Yeah.
even though there's kind of mixed reviews on that of the villains, not really, a powerful villain that we're used to in the Star Trek world, I still think he did a fantastic job in this movie.
Yeah.
He played intelligent, and he was ahead of everybody at all times, pretty much. So I enjoyed that a lot out of his performance. I always remember when I saw the trailer, that scream he gives
Yeah.
when he realized he's been tricked. I love that scream. As soon as it happened again, I'm like, yes. I thought Murray Abraham did awesome in this movie.
Yeah, I agree. Star Trek doesn't have many, villains like this. You got Khan, you got the Borg Queen, but when we do get these characters, they're fantastic. And he's a great example. He's a good actor, anyways.
Oh yeah, he is.
Yeah, I feel like, Dave, I'm on the other side with you on this one. His laugh, I feel like, is in character because it's, thinking about this faction of the Sona as being, selfish and kind of immature
Hmm.
motivations behind their, what they're wanting to do. And the two times when I hear him scream, it sounds like an angry cat. Like to me, it was just like, what is happening right now? But yeah,
I almost
the
felt like
sinister parts he did great.
I almost felt like the scream though was like, I mean, look at his face.
Yeah.
And it was almost like a reflection of how he's feeling. Like all that skin being pulled and stuff like that could not have felt great.
Right.
So I felt like that scream was kind of of all of that going on, and that's why the scream seemed awkward, in my opinion.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yeah. Well, it's a great point to have somebody whose skin, especially his forehead, is basically turned into overcooked parchment paper that's just ripping. Yeah, and maybe back off on the skin stretches, buddy. Like
a little bit, please.
You're not getting any closer to the cover of a magazine with all that stretching. It's just not doing it.
Right.
Then we got our other main guest star in this movie is Donna Murphy. Lady Angie, she's a two-time Tony Award winner. She's done a lot of stuff too. I remember she was Dr. Octopus's wife in Spider-Man 2.
Yes,
oh, that's right.
That is
she
crazy.
Sure was.
Yeah,
I just discovered that when I was looking that up, and I was like, oh my god, yeah, same person.
Yeah.
She did really good in this movie.
She did a great job. It's hard giving Picard a love interest. I mean, really didn't do too much of that on the TV show. Other than like Vosh, but
right.
I think she had some chemistry with Patrick Stewart. And it came across really well.
Yep.
And then of course, there's our third guest star, Anthony Zerbe, as the Vice Admiral. What do you think about him?
I think he did a great job. I think it's like it stands out in my head every time he says "Dougherty out." He has a very distinct voice.
He does, yeah.
You could tell that it was somebody who was acting on Federation orders, but that he had a little bit of reservation about it. He understands the importance of doing so. He believes in doing so, apparently because he's leading this whole thing, but you can see that there's some doubt there. So I think that was well played.
And it even came off at times. It felt like he was performing in a way that he was in on it, but he wasn't. You know what I mean?
Right.
It felt like that at times, that he was in on it, but then he wasn't. Then he was just doing something for the Federation, and then he realized, between all of his interactions with Picard, which were some of the really best scenes in this movie, between those two, then you realize, oh wow, he really isn't in on this, and you kind of feel bad for him, but then you don't because you're just an idiot, man.
Yeah.
Well, that goes with most of the admirals of Starfleet. I don't know where they get their hiring at. I guess you have to just be an idiot to be promoted in Starfleet.
Apparently.
Well, Wayne, I was interested to learn that villainy runs in his family, because his sister in real life, actor Anthony Zerbe, his sister-in-law is Salome Jens.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Who is the main female changeling founder in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
Interesting. Yeah, that is interesting.
Also learned a little interesting tidbit about one of the extra crew members that was returning for this one. Michael Horton as Lieutenant Daniels.
Yep.
Apparently he did some interesting voiceover work throughout his career, including a voice on the 80s Transformers series.
Oh.
He was Spike's technical whiz kid and friend, Chip.
Oh,
Chip.
Of course.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that either. Wow.
No.
But it was nice to see, a recurring character that hasn't been established in Next Generation, but is still a connective thread through the movies. It's good to see faces come back like that.
It's nice to have that bridge crew. People pop up every now and then that you get used to. So yes, I agree with you, Scott. That's a nice touch for that.
Yeah, definitely. All right, now let's twist the story a bit and look into another dimension with What If, where we discuss the things that might have been. Scott, you want to start us with this one?
Yeah, so you had already mentioned two of the big ones, the alternate ending of de-aging Ruafu and Quark's deleted scenes. There was another one I thought was kind of interesting. There was some dialogue that was cut from the library scene between Riker and Troy, where they get into other motivations of the Sona, revealing that they apparently what they were going through, the toxins, the genetic modifications and whatnot, meant that they couldn't procreate. Now, I'm pretty sure there's probably another reason they're not procreating, and probably the whole skin stretching.
Yeah, that would be true.
I don't know. They were really winning a lot of awards there, but
Makes you wonder what other skin they're stretching.
Whoa, no,
God.
no, we're not going there.
No. That's why they were so angry. That's why he was yelling like a cat. He's like, "Stop stretching there. It's not meant for." Anyway, it seemed like it was interesting because it seemed like it tried to give them a little bit more than vanity. That it was a little bit more about trying to advance their race, but at the same time, it's like, but you're trying to undo it by, killing where you came from. Like, why they didn't just try to go back, I don't know. It just didn't make sense to me. But what about you, Wayne?
Well, this script, like all the others, went through a lot of drafts to get to where we got. I always found the first draft to be a rather interesting one that they wrote. But their first idea was a film that they were going to call Star Trek Stardust. What a horrible, horrible name. But
Yikes.
Yeah, but it featured Picard resigning from Starfleet after he's sent to retrieve a population in their youth-giving power and bringing them to the Romulans. And also had Picard being betrayed by a colleague of his. It's not too far off from what we got in the final film, and they really wanted to squeeze the Romulans in here because there'd never been a film that featured the Romulans to this point. And they also, I know Berman had them do a rewrite so that the colleague would be Data. I don't know if I like the idea of Data betraying Picard. I hope that would be like on down at the end there, but. And then they went, in that second draft too. It showed that Picard had killed Data early in the film, and then had to reactivate him to save the Federation from the Romulans. And the studio hated that script, thank God. Told again to start all over. And then the third draft that they did got rid of the Romulans, and it's really close to what we got now. But this included the Troy Riker romance. The regeneration of LaForge's eyes, but also had a major part for Lieutenant Barclay. That I wouldn't mind of seeing. And they wanted to include this draft. You mentioned it earlier. Included quite a few mentions of Jadzia's Dax's death and the emotional impact it had for Worf. But Rick Berman vetoed that because he was afraid that all those references to Deep Space Nine would kind of alienate the average viewer. This film went through so many different names before it got to Insurrection. It was Prime Directive, then it was The Enemy Within, then it was Forever, and for a long time it was called Star Trek Sacred Honor. The studio vetoed that one because they said it sounded too religious.
Yeah.
I'm still stuck on Stardust and how terrible that name is.
Oh gosh, could you imagine? We're here today talking about Star Trek Stardust?
No, thank you. To even go off what you were talking about Data killing, Picard killing Data, Brent Spiner wanted to be killed off because he felt he was getting too old for the role of Data. But apparently Stewart is the one who kind of vetoed that idea, and he sent a script to Brent Spiner, and it says better luck next time.
Of course, they would, next film, they would succeed in doing that, but... All right. Now, of course, we can't talk about a Star Trek film without going into an in-depth discussion about its musical score. Returning for his second film in a row and his fourth Star Trek film is composer Jerry Goldsmith, who by now is becoming the sound of Star Trek and definitely the sound of the next generation. Here, he's expanding on his template that he created with First Contact, starting out with a new opening theme and a much softer and lighter score than last time. David, what do you think about Goldsmith's Insurrection score?
So you hit the nail on the head there about the beginning there. It started to get elements of First Contact, but then it doesn't go there. You get a very gentle score to open up the film, and it gets a little powerful at times, but doesn't go to that higher level that you got from First Contact. But it was very enjoyable. It matched the film and the opening of this film beautifully, I thought, and the music was there, but it never got in the way of the film. And I'm never going to say music gets in the way of the film. Don't get me wrong, because Wayne, you know how much I love scores.
Oh, definitely.
But I felt like it blended so well with the movie through the whole thing that you almost forgot it was there, but you knew it was there because it helped pull you into the story and what was going on. So I felt Goldsmith did a fantastic job there because it didn't stand out. It felt natural to the film. So I thought it was perfect.
Yeah. Scott, what about you?
Yeah, I thought it was very well done and very fitting for the tone and the pace of the movie. I was interested to learn that the original soundtrack wasn't as complete as the fans wanted.
No.
There was an expanded bootleg version for the longest time.
Yeah.
Until 2013, when they finally put out something that would make that original bootleg no longer necessary.
Yep.
That shows a lot of the dedication and the love to Jerry Goldsmith and the scores for these movies.
Yep. I love the score to this film, and I'll even go as further and say that of his 3 Star Trek TNG scores that he did for the films, this is my favorite of the 3. Every decade that Goldsmith worked, he'd like reinvent his sound, the style that he would do. The 80s was very action-packed. He had Rambo. He experimented with electronic scores like Hoosiers. And then here in the 90s, he was taking a softer and more thematic approach, which makes, Insurrection just screams Jerry Goldsmith of the 90s to me. And I love his music in the 90s. This score in particular is very, very similar to another score that he did that same year in 1998, Disney's film Mulan, which is beautiful score.
It's a great score.
And it's very similar in the instruments and styles that he used. Plus his themes for the Sona and for the early scenes where they're watching the planet from the duck blind remind me a lot of his an earlier film he did called Capricorn 1. I've seen this mentioned by other people, but I absolutely agree. His use of piano and the hard percussion and all the blasting brass. I listened to this earlier today to kind of refresh my memory, and I still stand by it. This, in my opinion, is his best score of the 90s, and definitely in the top 20 in my mind of his best scores. As you mentioned, the soundtrack is still out there, people. If you want to buy it, you can buy both versions of it. There's the original version, there's the complete version. I want to quickly add, thanks to Paramount themselves, we got the complete scores to all 13 Star Trek films now. That they specifically put an order saying these have to be released. And as a soundtrack nut, I want to say thank you, Paramount, for doing that.
When you mentioned the whole thematic thing, this movie was 98. One of my favorite scores of Goldsmith was in 95, and that was First Night.
Yes.
You talk about thematic scores that he did in the 90s. That one stands out above all, in my opinion. Not getting sidetracked, but yes, it quickly reminded me of First Night from the 90s.
No, you're right. Yeah, that is a fantastic score, and it's a good example of how he writes themes and uses it throughout the score, just like he did for Insurrection.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, let's take another break, and then we'll be back to finish this off on our talk about Star Trek Insurrection. We're back again, and now we're going to talk about our personal favorite moments in the film. We've discussed both the film itself and the behind the scenes, so now let's look at what we liked about Star Trek Insurrection. Scott, I'll let you start off with your favorite.
I'd have to say one of my favorite moments. There's another one I'll talk about soon when we get into, who would you be in the movie. But when Riker and Geordi are talking about what they need to do with ejecting the core, and Riker saying to Geordi, "All right, eject the core," and he's like, "I just did." Like, he does it just knowing that it's what to do without even having to ask permission. And then that kind of, smirk that Riker gives.
Yep.
You can see how well this crew really works together.
Absolutely.
Dave, what about you?
Yeah, that was a great moment. I remember that vividly, and I just laughed at that. I was like, oh man, the chemistry right there between the characters is phenomenal right there. Because that's how it would work when you know each other and you work with each other from the years, of course.
Right.
For me, my absolutely favorite moment of this entire film is LaForge getting to see a sunrise.
Oh, yeah.
Because he mentioned that, I believe, was that first season?
Yeah.
In the Naked Now, I believe it was, where he mentioned that he would love to be able to see a sunset or a rainbow or something like that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And the fact that his eyes had healed back on this planet and he got to stand there and watch the sunrise. I thought that was phenomenal. It was such great character development for Geordi LaForge, who deserved, of all the years he's been through this, he deserved that moment, and he got it in Insurrection. That's by far my favorite.
Wayne, what about you?
Oh, mine's when Data asks Worf if he noticed his boobs perking up. No, no, seriously. I think the scenes that are in the mountains where the crew are evacuating the Baku are just absolutely incredible. Very epic, especially for Star Trek. After we got First Contact, very confined film, mostly taking place on the Enterprise and then the Bozeman Village, we get this epic scope of the mountain setting. I got to give credit to the film's cinematographer. It was Matthew Leonetti, because from beginning to end, this got some beautiful shots. The whole thing is just beautifully filmed. He's one of the best in the business. He worked on Steven Spielberg's Poltergeist. He worked on Fast Time at Ridgemont High, Commando, Strange Days. That battle too with the Sona probes is like the centerpiece of the film. It's so well shot, edited, very exciting. And of course I mentioned my love for the score, and I love the piece of music that's playing with it. Just like you said, David, it merges perfectly with what you see on screen, and this is a great example right there.
Absolutely.
All right, now let's see who we would like to be in the film. David, what about you?
As much as I love this character, I've mentioned him so many times since we've talked about The Next Generation, even not on the podcast. I absolutely love Commander Riker, and I want to be Commander Riker in this film for the mere fact he finally gets that connection with Deanna Troi. And the whole bathtub scene with Marina Sirtis. Oh yeah, I would be okay with that. But also the whole scene where they're like trying to get into communication range with Federation, and they had to get rid of the warp core, and then they're shooting at him, and finally Riker gives that line, "We are through running from these bastards," and he just turns that ship around and goes right into the fight. That is Commander Riker, and yes, without question, I would want to be him in this film.
Yeah, we definitely see the Captain Riker.
Yes.
That we see in Picard season 1.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
When he says there's nothing I would appreciate more than to, blast your Tal Shiar ass into oblivion, or whatever he says. Right.
Yes.
We see that Riker, which is beautiful. For me, Dave, I'm going to go back to what you were mentioning about Geordi getting his eyesight back. I can't imagine the feeling of having his eyesight back, but I think LeVar Burton did an amazing job in that scene, that we finally get him to be able to play Geordi without the prosthetics. And the emotion that he conveys without saying a lot is beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. So applause to LeVar for that. But also just his command of, he steps into the number one seat in that scene with Riker, and with a lot of the decisions he's making, he just does a phenomenal job. So I'd choose Geordi. Wayne, what about you?
Good pick.
I think I'm going to have to choose Worf. We've seen a lot of Worf. When he moved over to Deep Space Nine, but he always seems so depressed, and so much was going on. It was just a very rough time for him, and now he's back with the people he should be with, and he seems to be happy.
Yeah, he does.
He's in his element. He's with the people he loves, and he's got a great fight. He just seems so happy and excited, and I'd want to be him. I want to be him right there in the middle.
Despite the gorge.
Yeah, despite that,
All right.
All right, now comes my favorite part, where we dive deep into the movie and see if we can't pull out any Easter eggs. Of course we can. It wouldn't be Star Trek without them. There aren't too many of them for this one, though. I had to really, really dig deep for these. All right, this is the only Star Trek movie without any Stardate references, although the year this takes place is in 2375. And this is the first time that we see Geordi LaForge at the helm of the Enterprise since the Neutral Zone, all the way back in Next Generation's first season. This is the shortest Star Trek film, clocking in at 103 minutes. And if you're wondering, the second is Star Trek 3, which was 105 minutes. Most of the sets for the Enterprise E were cannibalized from other areas. Troy's office, transporter room, ship's library were all used from sets that were standing for Star Trek Voyager, just redressed a little bit. They couldn't damage them too much. And the set for Captain Picard's yacht is just the DS9 runabout set with a little bit of changes. On the flip side, they built sets for the Solana ship, and that would be reused as the Soloban ships in Star Trek Enterprise. And finally, we've got the Solana. They would be mentioned one more time later in Deep Space Nine's 7th season, the episode Penumbra, which aired about 4 months after the release of this film. And, there's one last. Okay. This is the last Star Trek film to have its cast and crew credits at the start of the movie. I know, David, you love opening titles.
I do.
You can say bye-bye to those.
Yeah, I know. Damn it. How dare they take that from me? There is one more, Wayne. There is. Funny you mentioned who watches the Watchers.
Yeah.
There is a cloth on the back of Picard's chair. This is the cloth given to him by the Mintakans and who watches the Watchers.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
Yeah, it always said on the back of his chair. I mean, he must have went back to what was the planet that the Enterprise crashed. Must have got that with that stupid clay thing that he threw on the ground.
Right. Yep.
And that concludes our look back at the film Star Trek Insurrection. We'd like to open a channel to our listeners and hear just what you thought about this entry into the Star Trek universe, your stories of how you saw it first, and your opinions of the film today. Who knows, you might even get mentioned on a future show. Of course, you can email us at afilmbypodcast@gmail.com. Find us online at afilmbypodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you're looking for more exclusive content or swag, you can join our Patreon and find out what gems are hidden within. Thank you again, David and Scott, for joining me and the listeners for another fascinating discussion. There's only one more film appearance left for the Next Generation cast, and we hope that everyone will join us again for that discussion on the next episode of Phasers Set to Stun.
Saddle up, lock and load.